Is tax reform now on the menu? President Trump sat down for dinner with 6 senators last night, including 3 Democrats at the White House, where the topic of conversation was overhauling the tax code. According to one attendee, Republican Senator Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania, the president strongly stressed his interest in getting a pro-growth tax package done, quote, as quickly as possible. The 3 Democratic senators, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota, and Joe Donnelly of Indiana were there. They described the talks as, quote, productive, while stressing the need for tax cuts for the middle class. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders yesterday explained the dinner earlier.
The president is reaching across the aisle and to cut deals that help the American people. The president truly believes, as he often says, that in order to succeed and grow, we must work as one team, one people, and one American family.
Joining us right now to talk more about that, Associate Editor and columnist at RealClearPolitics, A.B. Stoddard is with us. A.B., good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you so much. So we've been talking about this for so long, tax reform, since the president really took place in terms of the inauguration. Is this a positive sign? What needs to be done? Do you believe we will actually see some tax cuts by year end?
Well, it's clear Republicans have decided suddenly that it has to be by Christmas. They had talked about sort of early into next year as the latest because they want to inject some kind of jolt into the economy that can be felt before the midterm elections. But there's a new urgency to get it done by December. And if you think about all they have to do and all the discord and sort of dysfunction, it's interesting that they've sort of moved up the deadline, considering all the hurricane relief they have to fund and pass and different other deadlines coming up. But there's just one thing that unifies them, which is sort of a panic over the failure to repeal health care reform and replace it, and a feeling that they have to present the voters with some kind of accomplishment. Now, it's not going to be the sweeping reform as we know it was intended to be. They're going to fight over which tax breaks will be killed off in order to fund this. The combination, Maria, of permanent and temporary will be interesting, what they come up with and what they're able to call permanent. But the budgetary rules are very strict for deficit-funded tax cuts. And so there's a long road ahead in terms of what actually we're going to see in the bill. They think they're going to do this in 3 months, but right now we just don't know what the plan is.
But, A.B., it's David McDowell. President Trump is going to do something with tax reform that he did not do with the repeal and replace on Obamacare, and that is barnstorm. That is essentially hit the trail. I think 13 stops are planned where he is going to go out there and sell it to the American people. That puts pressure ultimately on those representatives in those various states to step up to the plate and do something.
It does or it doesn't. I mean, so far, if you're Senator Heitkamp from North Dakota or Senator Manchin, particularly Mrs. Heitkamp, she's gotten a plane ride and a rally, and then last night a dinner with the president, all without any details. Senator Manchin of West Virginia tweeted out a picture of himself with President Trump last night, always talking about how they want to work to come up with a path for bipartisan tax reform that helps the middle class. In the end, if they get a bunch of appearances with the president who won their state, but they can't come around to a plan because they can criticize it, let's say, as a tax cut for the wealthy and not significant relief for the middle class, then they've gotten a gift from President Trump, which is they hung out with him, they worked with him, quote unquote, they tried to get to yes. And, you know, with a president that was popular in their state, really remains to be seen if they're going to be on board. He's right to court them. He needs to stay in with them to the bitter end once there are details and there is a plan. He needs to be committed to a plan. He can't call it mean if it gets bad press. He really has to continue what he started, but I think it's a good start.
A.B., Amy Holmes here. You know, I've been really frustrated by the political coverage of Donald Trump reaching across the aisle, both on debt ceiling and now on tax reform, because he has long broadcast his intention to reach out to Democrats. His Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, he met with Democrats earlier in March to talk about tax reform. This has always been President Trump's game plan, but we're hearing from Republicans that they plan to do this as a partisan measure. So are Donald Trump and GOP leaders on the same page?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, the Republican leaders and the administration, according to Treasury Secretary Mnuchin yesterday, still intend to use this partisan mechanism called reconciliation that they tried to use for health care repeal on tax reform, and that would block a Democratic filibuster. So it sets them up protectively for a partisan vote. But since sometimes 51 is unreachable, as we saw on health care reform on the Senate floor, Republicans see why President Trump is going to seek out an effort to sort of eke out a few other Democratic votes. It's not going to be a bipartisan 60-vote tax reform plan, which would obviously be more centrist. It'll be a Republican plan in which they hope to attract one or two Democratic senators.
I guess what I keep asking is, where's the bill? So, so far we have all of the same principles that we knew about in April, when the White House gave us that white paper of the principles. 3 brackets versus 7 brackets, lower corporate tax rate, repatriation rate lowered. We know the principles. Where's the bill? Are they going to be able to put this down in paper on a bill in the next 10 days?
They absolutely have to. I'll point this out. We actually have less detail now than we did when President Trump was running for the highest office in the land. His plan on the campaign trail was more detailed than what we got.
But that tends to be the case, that plans on the campaign trail have
no excuses from the Republicans.
Here's the issue.
Now we need the bill. I'm done hearing about why we need tax reform. I'm done hearing about, what the rate might be on the corporate side. We know it's going lower. We need to see the bill.
Yeah, and especially because they've reiterated numerous times that they've been working on it since January.
Right.
Over and over and over again from all this gang of 6, they've all talked about how they've worked on it, but we haven't gotten any details from it. And now they're actually courting a lot of economists.
So is this Obamacare all over again?
Right, that's what I'm saying. We need to see the specifics. A.B., how long does it take to get these principles on paper, in a bill, get some agreement on some areas, to actually produce something to show the American people this is happening?
Maria, you know a lot about this. There are about 9 tax bills sitting around. They can use any of them or combine any of them at any time. If they had agreed to something, we would see it. They keep telling us we're going to see it by the end of September, that they have to get it out in public soon. We hope that's true, but I just do believe if they had reached consensus, we would know what the principles were already.
All right, A.B., we'll keep watching this. We know that you'll be there, too. Thanks so much, A.B. Stoddard.
Thank you.